flying saucer sighted over the world's most populous city. Now, for the first time on American television, see the extraordinary videotape those stills were taken from. A lot of people are saying that this tape is the smoking gun that will prove once and for all that extraterrestrial visitors are here.
Hello, I'm Jim Forbes in Mexico City. And right behind me, hovering in the sky over there, an enormous craft, a classic flying saucer, was seen and videotaped darting, soaring, and then disappearing into thin air. And the question we've come to ask is, what was it? And should we be afraid?
Tonight, an exclusive report. Do you know what's really flying in our skies?
In these days of terrorism and all the threats and everything, that something that would invade our airspace is ignored. That doesn't make sense.
Do unidentified flying objects pose a new and dangerous threat?
The thought of something like Independence Day where this giant shape is coming over the city.
1 year ago, UFOs invaded Phoenix airspace. While some believe they have the answers, for most, the mystery has just begun.
I never took my eyes off the lights, and I saw a window.
What's the real story behind the Phoenix lights, and why haven't unsuspecting Americans been told the whole truth?
And the response then, if it's a classified test, is, of course, to deny it. That's what you're supposed to do, and the government handbook says you have no comment.
Then, is there a connection between this object and the most historic UFO encounters in history? Key eyewitnesses and investigators are risking everything in search of the answers.
I felt that they were going to hit us.
Now, this compelling new footage has experts wondering.
Smoking gun or hoax?
I say smoking gun.
It's a special investigation hosted by Jim Forbes, on location right where this groundbreaking UFO was videotaped.
That building is where the infamous videotape was shot.
With special correspondent Allison Holloway in Phoenix.
Is there a danger in our skies?
These things keep flying over our skies. They keep coming back.
Danger in our skies, the new UFO threat.
Traditionally, there are two camps in the UFO debate. The believers, and then the people who believe the believers are out of their minds. Well, now we're challenging both sides and everyone in between to keep an open mind when considering the evidence of what's really going on in our skies. We're going to show you compelling new information about UFOs and their connection to military black projects, potentially life-threatening experiments, near misses with airliners, even earthquakes. The story begins here in Mexico City, August 6, 1997. When the footage came in, honestly, the first word that came to mind was hoax. It had none of the features of great UFO films and videos of the past. It wasn't a cluster UFO like the ones captured on film in Utah in 1952, in Korea in 1996, and Mexico in 1997. It wasn't an Independence Day type mothership, the kind captured in this rare and historic video from Belgium. This was a wobbly saucer, almost a cliche, dipping behind a couple of high-priced condos. But the more we looked, the less like a hoax it seemed. And when we began to investigate the authenticity of the event, we found a startling connection between the saucer and another world-famous UFO event that had taken place in Phoenix, Arizona just a few months before. Together, these events are either the most elaborate hoax of the century or evidence of a North American mystery of the most threatening kind. Here, the reaction to UFOs, Los OVNIs, has been open-minded, curious, fatalistic, a reflection of Mexican culture and philosophy. But back in the States, the reaction has been much different, one that is marred by suspicion and discord, as Allison Holloway reports from Phoenix, Arizona.
It was here, a little after 10 p.m. on March 13, 1997, nearly a year ago today, that Mike and Sue Kristen saw something out there. Something glowing brilliantly over the lights of Phoenix. It wasn't a plane or a planet or even Comet Hale-Bopp, which was also visible that night. This was something that didn't belong, something awe-inspiring, yes, but also a little frightening. And Mike Kristen captured it all on video.
What I'm looking at here is a light on South Mountain.
Initially, I didn't know what it was. I had been telling people over the years that I've seen lights in those mountains, and nobody else ever seemed to have seen anything. So I figured, well, at least I have something on videotape So as I was filming that, another light came on to it, almost on the same plane, but further to the right. While I was filming those two lights, all of a sudden, this whole display of lights came on, one at a time, and they formed a graceful arch. And at that point in time, I called my wife, Sue. She was in another part of the house. I told her to come out. Hey, Sue?
Oh, my God.
The color is very, very distinctive. From where we are, we see a lot of helicopters, we see a lot of airplanes in the sky at night, and there's no way that this could be mistaken for any of those things. This is a very brilliant amber orange light. It's very solid, very bright. It doesn't waver or flicker. It's very different from anything else.
Tom King was 25 miles southeast of the Christens, and he had a video camera too.
We didn't know what it was, but about 5 or 10 minutes later, another one showed up. And I started rolling video on it. It was two objects really close together. And these girls started screaming, "There's another one, there's another one."
Wait, where?
Another one, too.
Where?
Pretty soon there were 6 of these objects in the sky, 4 of them in a straight line. And it looked like something really geometric to me.
They were perfectly still, they didn't move, and they went out one at a time, and they did not go out in the same sequence that they came on.
The objects were in the sky for 5 minutes, 25 seconds, 26 frames. I taped the entire thing from beginning to end. We weren't aware at the time that there were mass sightings taking place all over around Phoenix and all over Arizona.
Richard Motzer is lead field investigator for Arizona's Mutual UFO Network. He has conducted a detailed investigation into the Phoenix Lights.
For most eyewitnesses, this has been the experience of their life. It has changed many, many people's opinions about unidentified flying objects.
Village Labs is a Phoenix-based company that creates computer software for aerospace and the film industry. For the past 20 years, Jim Dilatoso has used his million-dollar computers to analyze, free of charge, potential UFO videos. He says that one of the most compelling facts in the Phoenix case is that the lights do not fit the spectrum profile of any known object. Are you saying that these lights might be ET, extraterrestrial in origin?
One of the possibilities that's left to explain the lights is that they are ET. It may be something else. It may be a very unusual government military project. My sense of it is whatever it is, it wanted to be seen.
This UFO may have wanted to be seen, but there are many who wish it had never been seen. Then Governor Fife Symington was flooded with inquiries. The public was demanding answers, and Symington called a press conference to announce his proposed plan of action.
I believe it a serious offense for anyone, human, space alien, or otherwise, to engage in mysterious activity in our nighttime skies. That is why I will personally ask that the perpetrator be prosecuted to the fullest for the havoc wrought on our entire community. And now I'll ask Officer Stein and his colleagues to escort the accused into the room so that we may all look upon the guilty party. Don't get him too close to me, please. You know. Now, this just goes to show that you guys are entirely too serious.
Perhaps Governor Symington, who was on the verge of being indicted for bank fraud and false representation, probably thought this alien joke would win him points with the press. But it also enraged a frightened public who wanted real answers about what was flying in free airspace above 1.2 million people. 3 months would pass before anyone in an official capacity would come forward with a less frivolous explanation for the Phoenix Lights. According to this letter from Captain Drew Sullins of the Maryland National Guard, the Guard was on a training run on the backside of the Estrella Mountains that night. And what the good people of Phoenix saw March 13, 1997, were military flares deployed in the wrong place.
Essentially, what we determined and what we are pretty rock-solid sure happened is our A-10 Thunderbolts that are right behind me were part of Operation Snowbird last March 13th in 1997, and were on a night illumination exercise over the Barry Goldwater Range Complex southwest of Phoenix, and they were dropping high-intensity flares that deploy on a little parachute and descend to the Earth. And we think that those flares were mistakenly called UFOs by the folks in the valley in Phoenix there.
This is a view of the Estrella Mountains from Mike and Sue Christen's backyard, from where they shot their video. The Barry Goldwater test range is behind the mountains, but the Christens and many other eyewitnesses insist they saw the lights on the Phoenix side of the mountains. A computer overlay by Village Labs supports this contention, so many in Phoenix are saying either the Maryland Guard were dangerously off course or the objects are not flares.
Flares would drift, they would drop, they would move sideways, they wouldn't hold a pattern.
Jim Dilatoso says that if they were flares, even flares suspended by parachutes, he will be able to detect some movement during the 3.5-minute video.
These lights do not move at all. It's not like they drift a little bit, they drift none.
In a comparison between the Christen video and Air National Guard footage of the type of flares they claim to be dropping that night, one can see the smoke halos around the flares. Obviously, videotaping conditions are not comparable, but there were no eyewitness accounts that mentioned smoke, halos, or parachutes. And just a few months ago, on January 14, 1998, it happened again. The same orange orbs of light appearing in the same place. And once again, Mike Christen was ready.
Hey, we got three. We got three.
Three.
Yeah.
There are three right there, right now.
Listening to your voice on the tape, on your video, Sue, you sound excited, but I also detect something else in your voice. A little bit of fear, a little bit of apprehension.
I do have to admit that, yes. Okay, this is amazing. This is totally amazing. Okay,
we got
have lights.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This time, I was definitely excited, but I was a bit intimidated by what was happening. I was a little bit concerned. It was a bit scary and a bit freaky.
This is unusual.
So what were they? Consider this scenario. The Phoenix lights, bright and obvious, were just a diversion to take attention away from something far more ominous. An enormous UFO the military or some other agency or some other civilization didn't want you to see. But a few people in Phoenix did see it on March 13th, and now they're scared.
Next on Danger in Our Skies, were the people in Phoenix the subjects of a top-secret government experiment? And later, the footage that is the buzz of the internet. Has the question, are we alone, finally been answered?
Mexico City, August 6, 1997. The appearance of an enormous saucer is hailed by some as the smoking gun of UFO reality, and reviled by others as an elaborate hoax. Phoenix, Arizona, March 13, 1997. This arc of light fuels bitter debate, and no one can agree. Are they flares, a military black project, or evidence that we are not alone in the universe? This is one area where Mexico and Phoenix run on parallel tracks. Conflicting reports, misinformation, untrained eyewitnesses, all obstacles getting in the way of finding the truth. In Phoenix, early reports were so muddled, the real story of what happened on March the 13th was almost lost in the confusion.
After 10 p.m., hundreds of people began calling local TV, radio, and newspaper reporters. Most were reacting to the amber 10 p.m. lights, but a few seemed to be talking about another UFO event altogether. Local talk radio host Erskine Payton got the earliest calls on the 8 p.m. triangular UFO.
The initial witnesses all had a fairly common denomination. This is what they saw, this is how it moved, this is where it went, this is what went on. I trust the early witnesses. I said it on my radio program the second week of the program. Listen to what these people say, because these people are telling the truth.
Two of those early eyewitnesses were a Southwest Airlines pilot and his wife, who were driving across the valley floor. Pilots usually don't talk about UFOs, so they have asked us to obscure their identity.
As it was flying away from me, then the realization hit me that I don't know what I just saw.
Did you try and rationalize in your mind what you were seeing?
Oh yeah, at a glance, when I first saw them, I even said, it's just a flight of fighters. And then I realized it wasn't fighters. The line of sight
of the flight through the sky was too slow, and there wasn't any noise.
Although there were dozens of other eyewitnesses to the 8 p.m. sighting, there is only one videotape known to exist. Because the original video is of such poor quality, we've added some contrast and highlighted the area around the UFO. What you can't tell by the video is the tremendous size of the UFO, described by eyewitnesses as the size of a football field. Were you scared?
Yes, I was. I had a thought of something like Independence Day where this giant shape is coming over the city. It gave me such a creepy feeling that I immediately got back in the car and started hugging myself and getting cold chills.
That same description of a massive UFO was reported along a 300-mile flight path from Henderson, Nevada to Tucson, Arizona.
The main event was the 8:30. That is the event that most of the people saw, and this is the one that had most people shaking their heads saying, whoa, something's out there. And some people were saying alien, but most of the people, the original witnesses I had, said it was some type of aircraft.
Well, after flying high-performance fighters, I guarantee you my eyes do not play tricks on me. I don't really think it's military at all, to be honest with you.
It was the 8 p.m. sighting of the enormous triangular UFO that fueled the ire of one, and apparently only one, city official. Enter Councilwoman Frances Emma Barwood, who told her constituents that she would get to the bottom of the UFO controversy. When Frances Barwood brought the matter of the Phoenix Lights before the City Council, she was unprepared for the chilly response.
I said, could we look into why nobody's investigating? And there was a silence.
You know, kind of curious, especially since people are starting to ask more questions. Thanks. Thank you. Councilman Siebert.
After the meeting was over, one of the deputy city managers came over to me and he said, you know, you shouldn't have asked that. You really opened Pandora's box.
And Pandora's box was full of ridicule, as this political cartoon illustrates.
You know, it was like when you don't want somebody to talk about something, what you'll do is the scorn factor so that they avoid that, and that's pretty sad. You would think in these days of terrorism and all the threats and everything that something that would invade our airspace is ignored. That doesn't make sense. I mean, what are they doing? What is their job? And if they're ignoring things like that, then that's a frightening thought, too.
If I'd been living here, I'd be very worried. I mean, I'd want to know, is there a danger in our skies?
When the Phoenix Lights happened, kids were afraid. To them, it's dangerous that there's no explanation and that they have to live wondering what that is and if it's coming back and what it's going to do to them.
There have been many theories about the 8 o'clock sighting. What's your theory?
I think that I'm split between a black project and a possible, illusionary weapon at this time.
It's being suggested that some, if not all of the activity here, is the result of influence technology. Now, that's what the American military calls its experiment in mass mind control, which is designed to confuse the enemy on the battlefield. Now, that sounds far-fetched, maybe even a bit wacky, but it is real technology. And Allison Holloway has found an eyewitness in Phoenix who may have been an unwitting victim of influence technology.
The woman you're about to hear from is a school teacher. She has asked for anonymity.
The lights were coming toward us as we were heading north, and there were 5 lights. Looked like there was a gap, like a missing man formation. As we turned east onto Happy Valley Road, there was a split 1 or 2 second time in there. I never took my eyes off the lights. And I saw a window, and it was like an arch-shaped, body-length, frosted window with like a side view of a humanoid type of figure.
Describe the humanoid figure.
You could see a head, a torso, like a buttocks, legs. Something about the head was like a little shelf off the back. I couldn't see any detail. I just saw the shape through this window. It's the best it's the only way I know to describe it.
Christine realizes that what she is saying sounds a little crazy, and frankly, we were extremely skeptical until we interviewed Chris and Janet Morris. The Morrises are experts in non-lethal weapons technology. They are consultants to the Defense Department, CIA, NSA, and world-renowned think tanks.
The technology necessary to project three-dimensional images to a point in space requires no new breakthroughs in science. We have the technology now.
Overall, the non-lethal weapons development program is aimed at giving our military options between talking and shooting.
Specific system development, we really can't talk about.
But the Morrises did talk in general about secret military experiments with lifelike 3D projections in the sky called holograms.
Holograms on a battlefield would be to divert the attention of the enemy, to deliver propaganda or something very frightening to make the enemy run away if you think that he will believe that what you are sending is really an angel, a devil, a UFO.
And where could this type of weaponry be tested? Perhaps not coincidentally, along the U.S.-Mexico border at the Army's electronic proving ground in Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
Keep in mind that test facilities like Fort Huachuca in Arizona are electrical optical test beds, and part of what they're testing are the effects of these electro-optical devices on a target population.
And the target population may be us.
America has to test American equipment in America. American citizens have been damaged by testing.
When danger in our skies returns, 2 laser beams, 2 UFOs. Is it friend or alien foe? And later, the exclusive UFO footage, uncensored and uncut.
On March 13, 1997, scores, perhaps hundreds of Arizonans were privy to one of the most dramatic UFO sightings of the modern age. And at least one Phoenix resident also witnessed a strange holographic image in the wake of that massive triangular UFO. But was she the only one who got a glimpse of the truth? At 8:30 Mountain Standard Time, a caller to the National UFO Reporting Center stated that he had seen the giant triangle and what he thought was a red laser beam shoot out of the craft very near to where Christine had seen the hologram.
The testimony that says that there was a red laser beam tends to lead one toward the explanation that it was a holographic projection. And it might be that as they were shutting those sources down or in the process of moving it across the sky, one accidentally became visible for a short period of time.
And where does a red laser beam and a striking UFO also make a nighttime appearance? In Mexico City. Gustavo Camacho and Hugo Yax are photojournalists for Excelsior, one of Mexico's oldest and most prestigious newspapers. On the night of August 26, 1997, Hugo was shooting a test of a red laser beam in downtown Mexico City. And when the laser beam appeared, so did a UFO.
They were shooting the lasers from one building to another. A beam was thrown, and I started taking pictures. I came back to the newspaper to develop them, and I showed them to Mr. Camacho, that we had lights or spots on the film. He told me to process the negatives and develop them again. I cleaned the negative and did the whole procedure again. The lights didn't go away. The funny thing about this situation is that in negative number 2, the points appear vertically. In number 3, they disappear. In number 4, they appear again. Then it skips to number 8, when the points are horizontal. I have been with the paper for 26 years, and I have reached the conclusion that this was not any spots or reflections, but real luminous points that were in the sky.
Mexico City, because of its pollution, it would be an ideal place to experiment with laser holography. The fact that there was an incident where a red laser shot into the sky and at the same time a UFO was spotted seems to have more than coincidental relation.
And perhaps the fact that the big saucer of '97 appeared on one of the smoggiest days of the year is no coincidence either.
If influence technology is also at work here in Mexico City,
It would have to date back to July the 11th, 1991. That's the day when UFO fever turned red hot with an extraordinary event that was witnessed by tens of thousands of people. It was as if the UFO had chosen Mexico City for a calculated debut on the international stage. On July 11th, 1991, the eyes of the world were already trained on the skies for one of the greatest solar eclipses of the century. And as the moon obscured the sun, there it was. A brilliant UFO hovering in the west. Traffic stopped all over Mexico City. Thousands of people saw it. And Father Manuel Ferrer was one of dozens of eyewitnesses with home video cameras. You've been a Catholic priest for 18 years.
Yeah.
As I understand it, you started to see lights in the sky.
I was in the chapel and I wanted to record the eclipse. And as if by accident, the UFO came out. And there was a big circle, like a giant frisbee. It had movement, color. It was dark, like a gigantic frisbee, more or less 100 meters high and exactly above us. And it was there for about 15 minutes.
But was it a true UFO, El OVNI as it is called in Mexico? At the National University of Mexico, astronomer Dr. Julieta Fierro says no. During the eclipse in 1991, you observed it.
Oh, yes.
It was a phenomenal sight.
Oh, it was beautiful.
And it cast off images.
Yes.
With that eclipse, so many people said they saw other things, what they thought were otherworldly.
Yes, I think many of us would like to have contact with extraterrestrials. But I think it's a very large inference from seeing I see a light in the sky and believing there's actually a person or a being in there that wants to communicate with us.
Have you yourself ever looked to the sky and seen something that you can't explain?
No.
While science has plenty of answers for what they're not, the sheer number of UFOs that have been seen and videotaped in and around Mexico City since 1991 have everyone baffled by what they are.
I know what a satellite is. I know what a star or a meteorite is.
Then, Father, do you believe that it is intelligent life from another world?
Of course.
Peter Akar has taped more than 80 UFOs, many from the roof of his building.
They have movements that I consider as being intelligent, and therefore I believe that it must be some intelligence. If not from this planet, then the other option is for it to be extraterrestrial.
For more than 25 years, Cuauhtemoc Alvarenga has been a cameraman for Televisa, Mexico's largest television network. Do you think what you have seen personally in the sky is from another world, or do you think it can be explained?
I have tipped a lot of things that I don't understand. Some could be possibly balloons. Others I know are not from this world.
7 years, thousands of UFOs. The stage is set for one of the most baffling and threatening saucer invasions in history.
When danger in our skies returns, tracking the location of the saucer mystery, and then will the historic saucer video hold up to analysis by the experts?
When the first wave of UFOs hit Mexico City in 1991, the first journalist on the front line of the investigation was Jaime Maussan. Maussan had been the Mike Wallace of Mexico. He was an award-winning journalist and had been recognized by the UN for exceptional achievement as an environmentalist. And then the UFOs came. In 1991, you were making a very comfortable, frankly magnificent living as one of the country's most credible journalists. When you start to think about, I'm going there, I'm going to go start discovering this information, I'm going to start investigating UFO activity, you've got to be sitting down with yourself, looking in the mirror and saying, Jaime, do I really want to go there?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I said to myself. What do you want to do, Jaime? Do you want to be called crazy? If you are honest especially with yourself, you have to take the risk. And I did it. People who were very skeptical before, now they are talking seriously about UFOs. You have many pilots talking about UFOs. You have people in the tower of control who used to laugh about my work, my proposals. Now, most of them are believers,
Because of his passion, his credibility, and his fame, Maussan has been able to convince a lot of people to go on camera who had never considered appearing in the U.S. Raimundo Ruano is an Aeromexico captain, a 32-year veteran, who is willing to tell all about a mid-air collision he had with a UFO.
What happened on July 28, 1994?
I was on a final approach to the Mexico City airport, and I had a strong impact at the moment that I lowered the landing gear. I immediately told the control tower, this is an emergency. This is an emergency. I requested permission for landing, and we prepared the passengers for evacuation.
He shouted in the radio, collision, collision. You don't do that if you're a pilot, if you are not sure that something is going to happen.
Miraculously, Captain Ruano's plane was able to land safely, despite the fact that the hydraulic line to his landing gear had been cut.
Radar control told me, Captain, when you entered the Mexico area, you were on radar control and on the screen as you were coming in. An unidentified object crossed underneath you. At the same moment, you declared an emergency.
For them, it's dangerous. For
the
pilots,
15,000 people in the sky, it's
for the
dangerous.
15,000 people in the skies, it's dangerous. For them, especially for the controllers who are realizing that this is happening. But what I am trying to explain you is that I don't feel there is some purpose that they want to be dangerous.
I'm not asking intent. I'm asking reality.
Yes.
If there are objects in the sky, pilots are encountering them,
yes.
Air traffic controllers say they are seeing them on their radar screens.
We have to be concerned. We have to be concerned. Accidents happens as a universal law.
Does the appearance of an enormous saucer over Mexico City pose a similar threat? Whether real or a holographic projection, if that is an actual object in the sky, undetected and uncontrolled by air traffic controllers, the threat is real. In order to get to the bottom of the incredible flying saucer footage, we went to the exact location where the saucer had supposedly been hovering. We were looking for answers, for eyewitnesses, anyone who may have had a part in the mysterious sighting on that day. Anyone, that is, who would be willing to talk about it.
And at least I found the place. This is real, the place exists, the buildings. And then I found not one witness, but 12 witnesses. Some of them who were just under the object, others who saw it far away, others who didn't see the object, but remember that their animals went absolutely crazy that same day.
You presented this video. You presented the video at first without knowing where it was. Why? Because you wanted to flush people out? You wanted people to come out and say, hey, yeah, I know where this is?
Exactly, and it happened just one day after. It worked. And for me it was very important because I found the place, the physical existed. This was not a photographical trick.
But you're also telling me that you can't authenticate it without talking to the photographer.
Absolutely.
But the story is consistent with everyone you have spoken to.
Exactly.
One eyewitness to the August 6, 1997 saucer was 13-year-old Cassandra. Can you show me where you were standing when you saw it?
¿Podrías decirle dónde lo viste cuando estabas parada? It was in the middle of those two buildings.
I was scared.
Was it wobbling, floating?
Se movía así?
At first it was still, but was wobbling. Then after it balanced, it shot out toward the corner of the buildings, and then it disappeared.
As our interview progressed, Cassandra told us that the object had been spinning and that she thought she saw windows. She also revealed that right after the sighting, she told her father about the UFO, but he had not believed her. Had you seen the video yet?
No.
Have you seen it since?
Sí.
Is that what you saw?
Sí.
Don't you think that if there were a craft that large hovering over that building, that more than 12 people would have come out and said they had seen it?
We have found 12 witnesses. If we want to look for more, we could find more.
We continued to look. We questioned those familiar with the area where the saucer had apparently been taped. We looked from every possible point of view. We heard that there had been a sighting about a mile north in the wealthy suburb of Bosques Los Lomas. There we met Annie Lask, a young woman who had been on the roof of her house on August 6th, and she told us the saucer in the video had hovered directly over her. And how high above you was it?
Like 20 meters. The outer rim was spinning really fast, and the hissing, when I realized there was this weird thing on top of my head, I wanted to take a picture, and I turned to take the picture. I turned up, and it wasn't there. But there was like this mist, like purple mist, or maybe haze.
After the saucer left her, standing in a purple staticky haze, came from here, went over there, and that... Annie Lask does not remember getting down from the roof.
Since that day, I had constant headaches, like every day, like really strong headaches. My eyes burned so bad.
They still do?
Yes, since that day.
We've done a site survey in this exclusive neighborhood and believe that building is where the infamous videotape was shot. A building that denied us access.
That's the terror.
Jaime and his investigative team had been here before, but today, as we approached again, we couldn't be sure of what we might encounter.
We were kicked out, I mean, aggressively. I felt that they were going to hit us.
On this day, we weren't kicked out, we were locked out, and inquiries about what business was being conducted in this unmarked office building went unanswered. We attempted to interview people in the two condos so prominent in the saucer video. The exclusive complexes were like fortresses. At one, we were kicked out. At the other, we were escorted out. So we were forced to turn from investigating who had seen it to what it was.
Next on Danger in Our Skies, the historic video that may prove that we are not alone. Judge for yourself when this exclusive footage is shown in its entirety for the first time on American television.
Now, for the first time in its entirety, you are seeing the Mexico City saucer just as we first saw it. We haven't enhanced or manipulated the footage, and we haven't removed anything. Translation is being withheld because of the nature of the language used. Let's just say the shooter and his friend are very excited. What do you think? Is this hard and fast evidence of an extraterrestrial invasion? Is it a hologram? Or an experimental craft deployed by the military? Or is it indeed a most elaborate hoax? Here's what we found out. The footage was delivered anonymously to Jaime Maussan's offices at Televisa. Now we are taking the footage to Propulsion Aviation and video analysts for their opinions. Allison Holloway interviewed David Froning, who is a propulsion engineer and 30-year veteran of McDonnell Douglas.
What's your best guess at what this is?
I think it's an intelligently controlled craft. It looks like it's being propelled by what we call field propulsion, a propulsion or a mode of impulsion which we ourselves have not fully developed yet. This country has built vehicles that are lenticular in shape, just like that. They're driven by high-performance gas turbine engines that can kind of fly around in the sky just like this did.
So you're telling me that we have something in existence like this already that looks what, like a flying
It looks like that, it wobbles like that,
right,
but it makes a lot of noise.
But we don't have anything that's silent.
Nothing
like
that's
this.
silent.
When I sat down here and you said, look at this tape, the first thing you said to me was, look how close it is to the ground. And you didn't think it meant to be that low to the ground. Tell me about that.
Well, it was just an intuition. That I got the feeling that for a short interval of time, the craft was actually slightly out of control. In fact, that might have been the reason that it had to drift so close to the ground.
The wobble that it's making, drawing on all your experience, does it look to you like it's out of control?
Well, the wobble at the onset looks like an object suspended by a string. But then when you test it, it's not that. also many other videos of UFOs wobble like that.
And what if it wasn't a real craft at all? What if the whole thing was a special effects trick created in an editing room or on a computer? We took the footage to Ray Raimondi and Fred Giaratana, who are special effects supervisors at the award-winning commercial division of Digital Domain, the company responsible for the special effects in the movie Titanic. Fred, smoking gun or hoax?
Definitely smoking gun.
Why the glint in your eye?
Because I'm very excited to see this. It's to me, it's the most compelling footage that I've seen. This might be the one that we've been waiting for.
Ray, smoking gun or hoax?
Really good hoax.
A hoax in which there was physically a craft over this apartment building, or a hoax that was done in a computer-generated lab such as this?
Right. From what we've been able to look at, it looks like either it was done amazingly well from a CG point of view, like in a computer effects place or something like that. But I don't really believe that. There's just too many things that make it look like it was really, really there. It was photographed in the camera, meaning that it wasn't affected afterward. Like, for instance, when it goes behind the building, the way the edge breaks apart is kind of consistent with the way video consumer cameras just kind of break up on those edges.
All right, so we're on the wide shot. If you can pull that back just a little bit. We're on a wide shot right here. And you can see a little figure up here to the left of this apartment building. Then if you let it roll, and as it goes, that figure, you zoom in and the figure gets bigger.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a difficult effect to do.
Yeah, the first thing we noticed was just that if it was done as an effect, it was done seamlessly, because the zoom part it's natural. The hand holding of the camera is all natural, and whatever that is stays exactly with it perfectly.
How was it done then?
My theory in looking at it is it looks like it's being suspended from something above, like a helicopter. It's so far away and hazy that if there was a cable there, you wouldn't see it.
Am I correct in hearing that you both agree this did exist over these buildings on that day when these pictures were shot?
More than likely.
You disagree whether it's a man-made hoax or a real deal craft of some sort. But how hard would it be to create a believable hoax? With a home video camera and their effect computer, Fred and Ray made this on a coffee break.
What you're seeing here, this pie plate in the sky, we did literally in a half an hour. If this were for a commercial client or a motion picture client, we would have spent maybe a week with this shot. It would have been perfect. You would believe it as much as you believe the Mexico City shot.
We're doing this on this is $1 million visual effects system here. This is the best. This is the best. This is Cadillac right here. So it doesn't come any better than this.
But it's not the only one in the world.
No, and I know there's a few in Mexico.
It was a misty day. Who knows what all the mechanisms are available for stealth and cloaking of these kinds of ships? What if the pilots of this ship realized when the person shooting the video had them locked on, holy smokes, somebody can see us now, and they revved up their engines, got out of there?
I think if this was a hoax, they would have come out already. If in 6 months, 2 years, nothing has happened, the truth hasn't come out, but nobody has proved this wasn't real, then I think we have the real thing.
But in the shadow world between UFO, Black Project, and hoax, there are no absolute truths. We may never know if the real danger is imaginary, coming from our own government, or most chilling of all, coming from the stars. So are we any closer to understanding what it was that flew behind this luxury high-rise and then disappeared, as Annie last said, in an eerie purple haze? Do we yet have a grasp of what it is the people of Arizona have been seeing in their skies? The answers are as complex as the events themselves, but the events offer us a significant call to action, to be more vigilant, discriminating, and perhaps more concerned about the real threat from the danger in our skies.
Guys, it's going up now as fast as I am.
That's 360 miles per hour. I'm going after it.
Moments later, Captain Mantell's mission had ended. Occasionally, the tables were turned. More than one alien craft crashed and was recovered for secret U.S. military research. The most famous case took place in July of 1947, just outside the community of Roswell, New Mexico. Famous because local officials openly admitted they had retrieved an alien ship before their commanders instructed them to keep the story confidential. What you can't explain, they reasoned, you must deny.
July of 1947, the Army Air Forces at Roswell announced we had captured a flying saucer. You can say our government announced in July of 1947 they had a flying saucer. 3 hours later, they announced, no, it's merely a weather balloon. The officers at Roswell made a mistake. But our government has come forward and said, yes, we had a flying saucer. Then they took it back.
Any one of your viewers can go back to the newspapers on July 8th, July 9th of 1947, and just front page headline after headline that the government had captured a flying saucer.
Don Schmidt from the Center for UFO Studies in Chicago is convinced that the Roswell case is the linchpin in America's ongoing alien cover-up.
We have over 550 witnesses. They were there. They handled the debris. They saw the craft. They saw the bodies. They handled the crew members of that craft. And invariably they all say, this was not from this earth.
This is the actual site where the Roswell saucer was discovered, along with the bodies of 3 extraterrestrial missionaries who didn't survive the collision. The debris and the dead were impounded and taken away for top-secret study, while a classified investigative committee called the Majestic 12 was organized by President Truman. And a government cover-up was initiated with a calculated disinformation campaign.
The military, I know for a fact, has established what's called disinformation programs, officially sanctioned deception programs. This is covered by a regulation at Department of Defense level that's secret. This is the case with the unidentified flying objects.
I cannot say that the Roswell incident was a cover-up, but I can certainly say that the government back then and today acted like it was a cover-up and has been subject to being accused of a cover-up.
The flying saucer debris at Roswell was attributed to a downed weather balloon. There was no explanation for the alien body parts among the wreckage. Before long, other sightings were dismissed as optical illusions caused by electrified swamp gas, with elaborate demonstrations staged for newsreel cameras to back up the claim. But while the Pentagon refused to publicly admit aliens had arrived on Earth, their top-secret internal memos told a different story, even detailing the various ships and the creatures they had autopsied. Meanwhile, the American people fell in love with flying saucers, sensing something playful in their alien design. Before long, even the military seemed to fall under the trance of the UFOs. Government inventors began to mimic what they were seeing in the sky, in a strategy to stumble upon the secrets of advanced alien technology. These rare films chronicle those primitive efforts.
At a symposium conducted by Princeton University, weird and wonderful flying machines developed for the Army go through their paces. The flying scooter, for instance, with only a 7-horsepower motor. Or this flying what have you. Just count your fingers after starting the fans.
The naive attempts to copy the saucers began to look foolish, especially in July of 1952, when real alien ships were routinely buzzing over Washington, D.C., leading fighter pilots on frustrated chases lasting as long as 6 hours. It was the first time since the War of 1812 that our nation's capital had been successfully invaded by a foreign power. By the early 1960s, UFOs were having a chilling effect on our defense operations. Their tremendous speed often caused them to be misidentified as incoming intercontinental ballistic missiles, putting American air bases on red alert. There needed to be some way for the U.S. and the Soviets to distinguish between nuclear attack and alien visitors.
The weapon is installed in the Pentagon, but it's a weapon of peace. This is the teletype that will operate at the U.S. end of an open line to Moscow. This link, it is hoped, will help avoid misunderstandings that could possibly trigger a catastrophe. Now, a president could be in touch with the Russian premier in a matter of seconds.
The hotline between Moscow and Washington was set up so they could go ahead and make last-minute pleas that we're not attacking you and you're not attacking us. The purpose for this was to ensure that a nuclear war would not be touched off by a UFO appearing on the scopes and being mistaken for enemy aircraft.
The hotline eased some international tensions, but it didn't halt the interaction between the military and aliens, which continues to this day.
November of 1975, essentially every SAC base in the United States was visited by UFOs. We have reason to believe that the UFOs went ahead and had some effect on changing the codes within the missiles, within the launch control facility, to change where the missiles would hit. 1976, September, Iran. 2 F-4s tried to intercept a UFO and shoot upon the UFO. The weapon systems of the planes go dead. The communication systems go dead. These are just 2 examples of cases which sound like they came out of science fiction, but in reality, they're from government documentation. Documents released by the State Department.
Main engines up and burning.
September 1991. Space Shuttle Mission 48. Commander Clayton and his crew point their camera